our bait casting reels, our spinning reels, what do we put on them? What kind of line do we put on them? That's another big question I get all of the time. You know, the most common line that we've always gotten in the past is monofilament. That's what we've been fishing for years and years and years. Cool thing about mono, tends to be a little bit more consistent. It's easier to tie. It's easier to deal with. For the beginning fisherman, it's a nice, easy way to go forward with your fishing. A couple of drawbacks to it. It floats, which can be an advantage. I'm going to talk about that for 1 second as well. But it's also a little stretchy. Because of the way it's extruded, it has a lot of stretch in it. It can have a lot of memory in it as well. But what it'll do is when you set the hook on a fish, if you're not fishing a heavy enough rod, it'll stretch, especially on long distances, and you might not get a good hook set. You know, if you're fishing with a topwater, that way you don't have a line that's riding your bait down and inhibiting the action of the bait. So that's something else to take into consideration. One of the new advances in the last 5 to 10 years has been fluorocarbon. You know, fluorocarbon has some really great advantages. You know, with mono, it can be seen in the water a little bit easier. Fluorocarbon pretty much becomes invisible in the water, so the fish are much less likely to see it. You can get away with fishing a little bit heavier line than you would with the mono in clearer water. It also doesn't have a whole lot of stretch. So if you're in those situations where you're flipping, you're fishing a jig in deep water, you're fishing in some areas that maybe you need something that's a little more invisible, really, really clear water, fluorocarbon is a good way to go. You know, also with fishing a crankbait. You know, crankbaits, jerkbaits, those kind of things, we're trying to always get those baits to go as deep as we can possibly get them to go. Fluorocarbon sinks, so that's another really good advantage to it when you're fishing those styles of baits that you want to get into a little bit deeper water. With crankbait, you know, with mono, you're going to get like a big bow in your line. With fluorocarbon, you're going to get more of a straighter arc because it doesn't float and it also sinks. So it kind of adheres to the bait a little bit better. You know, there's one other kind of line, and you know, this is braid. You know, braid has a lot of great advantages. If you're fishing heavy cover, if you're fishing in grass, this is a great way to go. Again, like the fluorocarbon, it doesn't have any stretch, but it also is a lot more abrasion resistant. So what it'll do for you in wood and in grass is it allows you to get down into the cover, pull a fish out of the cover, has very little to no stretch, really no stretch to be completely honest, and will pull fish right out of a piece of cover that you want them out of. In grass, it'll cut through that grass a whole lot better. You'll bring less grass in with your fish as well a lot of times, and so it's a great advantage there. I also will fish braid occasionally with a topwater. Again, kind of like a mono, it'll float. But if you're in long distance situations where you're casting a topwater a long ways, braid can really be an attribute in that you lose some of that stretch so that when you do set a hook from a long distance, you can still get a good hook in a fish. But I use this a lot of the time mostly for fishing topwaters, frogs particularly, and when I'm fishing punching through grass. That's the two most common applications that I use braid for.